Greetings Scouts, FiOth here, and in this vid we're gonna be talking about the Dreadbound. Now, information about the Dreadbound online is pretty scarce. People seem to be oblivious about what exactly each of its traits does, because no one's bothered to just keep screenshots or reference points from when picking up the weapon and just creating a database for it. I will be wording what each of its traits or perks does, well, in my own words of course, but I will relay to you the essence of each one of them, and of course, as we do with this series, I will suggest the best possible combination of perks for your Dreadbound. Before we start talking and analyzing perks, I have to discuss for a sec what the gun is exactly and how it works, because there seems to be a lot of misconceptions about its overall usefulness. So let's take a sec to just evaluate how the weapon functions. Here you see me very aggressively trying to close the gap, and you will notice when I'm up close, enemies just disappear after a pull of the trigger. That's because the weapon has immense damage potential, but each one of its available shards, which are normally just 3, have to return to you after you pull the trigger. You can see it here. It takes a bit of time until I can fire again. If you misbehave with the Dreadbound, the weapon punishes you severely. You have to know how to use it. So the Dreadbound is in essence a very short range SMG. The closer you are to the enemy, the best usage you'll get out of it. What has to be understood about this weapon is that you cannot in any way circumvent the speed in which the shards come and go unless you get an overall speed buff, like the speed buff you get from overloading a weapon, for example. But since the Dreadbound itself cannot overload because it never runs out of ammo, your options on the speed department are limited. You have to be in their face and you have to hit solid matter in order for the shard to come back, or it's gonna travel for a very long time and you're gonna have a miserable experience with it. It is the worst weapon to use in the Abyssal Scar by far, unless you're just fighting the boss, that is, or some of the beefier enemies. For the larger chambers, it will be a nightmare to hit the little sheds with this because of its very small ammo pool and its non-hit scan projectile design. So we're gonna start with the perks. I'm gonna relay the function of each one of these in my own words, as I said, because I don't have a specific text in front of me. No one's bothered to really put one together, but in this video you're gonna see the function of every one of these perks, and I'm also gonna suggest the best one you should be using according to my personal preference, of course. So starting from the bottom, as always, we have damage steal or obolite generator. It's one damage perk and one utility perk. For the purposes of this vid, we're gonna go with damage over utility. Damage steal gives you increased damage when a shard returns to you after damaging an enemy, and then you can take that buff and apply it to the rest of your barrage as you keep firing. Obolite generator generates obolites as you keep damaging enemies. There is a chance that when you hit an enemy with your Dreadbound shots, it will drop obolites, and you can collect those obolites to increase your overall pool of available obolites. For me, damage steal is the better one when it comes to combat. If you try to build up your economy early on, obolite generation is also a very good perk. The second pair is either returning damage or explosive shards. Returning damage causes damage to the enemy as the shards come back to you. You will hit an enemy and then the shard will, let's say, detach from the enemy and start traveling towards you. It's a secondary hit to the enemy that will also cause damage, but explosive shards are very damaging, cause a small AoE effect, and can take out some of the fodder enemies just by being in close proximity to the initial target. For me, explosive ordnance and weapons like this in Returnal are always a good pay off, because there will always be a large number of enemies in any chamber with you unless you're finishing off the stragglers, and being able to cause collateral damage is always a good bet. I'll take explosive shards over returning damage. Above that we have either expanding shards or protection steel. These are both utility. Protection steel, like damage steel, is an effect where whilst the shard is traveling back at you, you get some damage protection. Expanding shards increases the hit scan area. Oh, let's not say hit scan and misinterpret. Increases the hit area of the projectile itself, let's say its mass, so it's much easier to hit enemies or hit two enemies at the same time with each one of the shards, because they become large and they can touch a larger area, meaning you don't have to be as accurate as you normally would have to be. So here I will take expanding shards over protection steel, because, well, in Returnal the best bet is always to keep moving and avoid getting hit altogether. For the final trifecta of perks we have Staggering, Obolite Magnet or 4th Shard. Obolite Magnet is nice, it's utility, there's a chance that you will auto-absorb the Obolites. Staggering increases the stagger effectiveness of each shard, but 4th Shard is amazing and pretty much a must-have for the Dreadbound. You pretty much get 25% increase in your damage flat over slightly larger distances, because you can shoot an additional shard and you have more time to recycle your available shards, and also makes the gun much more forgiving. If you by mistake shoot one of the shards to Kingdom Come, you also get an extra chance to actually land the shot with the additional shard. So 4th shard for me is a must, followed by staggering if you can't land 4th shard. Finalizing this, it's damage steel, explosive shards, expanding shards, and 4th shard. That's my build for the Dreadbound. I hope you found this useful. I'm covering every weapon in Returnal. Dreadbound is a curious egg to crack because of its unique design. For me, it's one of the most inspired designs when it comes to SMGs like this. It draws a bit from the Needler from the Halo games, and it also is an SMG that you cannot trick into using over longer distances like in pretty much every other video game out there. Weapons are designed to be used up close, in some cases only from very short distances, but that can be, let's say, circumvented. Dreadbound has to be used up close, but up close it can be a force to be reckoned with if you get the correct perks. Hope you found this useful. Sub, like, and share if you did. I'm covering pretty much everything in Returnal. We'll have annotations about the rest of my weapon guides here. Until next time, be well, stay frosty, and always strive for perfection. Cheers.